Hi, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Looks like Michael Flynn's case is going away. A motion was filed in the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. by federal prosecutors asking a federal judge to throw out the charge against Michael Flynn that he made false statements to the FBI. They claimed that the continued prosecution of this case would not serve the interest of justice. The Justice Department said the government concluded that the interview of Mr. Flynn was untethered to and unjustified by the FBI's counterintelligence investigation. They went on to say that it is not persuaded that the January 24, 2017 interview was conducted with a legitimate investigative basis. But, regardless of what happens in the court, Flynn's pants remain firmly on fire, and he's lucky he's a real boy and not a puppet, because he'd be banging into things left and right.
2020 is turning into one banger of an apocalypse bingo. This week, the universe decided to kick it up a notch by introducing an invasive species of giant murder hornets. The deadly Asian giant hornet, which is responsible for up to 50 deaths a year in Japan, was spotted in Washington state, and researchers say it's only a matter of time until it spreads throughout the US unless it's contained now. Most people agree that the hornet's probably stowed away on a Chinese container ship, as it's a well-known fact that murder hornets hate commercial airlines. The hornet measures up to 2 inches in length and has a 1/4-inch stinger that will go through most typical beekeeper suits, but not plate armor, and has quite a temper. Manhattan beekeeper Andrew Cote said it could be years before they make it to the East Coast, or they could end up in the back of someone's truck and make it to there in 4 days. Apparently the murder hornet can decimate a honeybee colony in mere hours because it needs protein to build up its own hive colony. It does this by decapitating and consuming the smaller bees. We're all looking forward to the onset of giant murder bears, which is naturally going to follow. And while this bothers me a lot, I'm also very happy, because there's nothing that Nick hates more than the misuse of the word decimate, which means to reduce by 10%.
This week, we took another step towards creating SKYNET and ending the human race. Boeing Australia presented the country's Air Force with its first jet-powered drone that flies with artificial intelligence. This is the first drone of its kind, and the idea is that it will eventually fly alongside manned aircraft. The drone, nicknamed the Loyal Wingman, looks like something that Bruce Wayne would fly out of the top of his mountain retreat. One of the most important functions of the drone is to protect the much more expensive stealth aircraft that will be manned. So just like their name implies, it's essentially their job to jump on the grenade so that their buddy can go home with the 10. Look, I'm all about advancing military technology, but I've also watched movies, and I know how this scenario always plays out. Terminator, Ultron, iRobot, the creepy kid from AI. Mankind is not ready for this. Robots can have lasers. What are we gonna do against lasers? There's not gonna be any toilet paper left, and we're gonna be running shit-stained from robotic lasered robots. And also, if a robot has to call itself a loyal wingman, chances are pretty good it's gonna end up being a Blue Falcon. Maybe, just maybe, a global pandemic would bring people together, have them fighting hand in hand, or from a distance, for the fate of mankind, and just generally reassess their lives and try to be better human beings. Turns out, not so much.
Police in Walker, Louisiana have urged people to be on the lookout for an aggressive suspect that has been terrorizing people at the local banks. The suspect has been described as reddish tan, about 18 inches tall, between 6 to 8 pounds, and has one hell of a staccato. Now, if you're thinking just now that, wow, this is the most interesting person that I've ever heard of, you're right. And luckily for the people of Walker, this is just one angry cock. The chicken was first seen harassing people at a drive-through ATM. He chased them around the parking lot and even tried to get in some of their cars. The angry bird was said to have fled before the pigs arrived. Many people tried to confront and chase away the angry fowl, but this cock was no chicken.
The United States now has its first arrest for somebody trying to peddle a miracle cure for the coronavirus. And that person happens to be Keith Middlebrook, a guy that's played a cop or a security guard in a couple of Marvel movies, most notably Iron Man 2. His firm, Quantum Prevention CV, told its investors that it has a miracle cure for the coronavirus. They further promised a treatment that prevented people from getting the virus in the first place. Turns out it was just olive oil in a bottle. I'm just kidding. I don't know what it was, but it was garbage and absolutely did not cure anything. The dude apparently has a couple million followers on social media, but I have to be honest, I had no idea who the guy was, so I Googled him. It looks like if you took bronzer, hair gel, Rogaine, and steroids and mixed them all up and were like, there's a person. He's also pictured with Lindsay Lohan a lot. I don't want to know what the two of them are doing together. I really don't.
Democratic House Representative Ayanna Pressley and others have presented a bill to address mounting student loan debt. The Student Debt Emergency Relief Act would cancel up to $30,000 per student and allow for the loan forgiveness to be tax-free. It also allows the government to cover for the person if they miss a payment. This will keep people from incurring additional debt and prevent things like wage garnishment during these trying times. But most importantly, it's a good way to buy votes. Maybe if the government stops artificially inflating the price of education by offering limitless debt to people who aren't even old enough to vote, then we wouldn't have a student debt crisis, and education would be more valuable. But sure, let's cancel it out. Most degrees are worthless anyways.
Police in Utah noticed that a driver was driving erratically and at 30 miles per hour on the highway. Obviously, they decided that the driver was drunk, hit their own lights, and pulled the car over. They were surprised to find a 5-year-old Tony Soprano wannabe that confidently explained he was on his way to Cali to buy a Lambo. When police asked him to turn out his pockets to see what he had with him, he showed them $3 American. When the police asked his age, he responded 5. And the only way I can describe the officer's reaction is mind blown. Now, looking at this photo, I have 2 questions. First, why did the police decide to blur out his face with a cuttlefish? Second, who believes this kid is 5? I think he's got 5 pounds on me already. He's gigantic. A big, gigantic liar, that is, with a passion for stealing cars and buying Lambos. I think we've just found our lead for Fast and the Furious 17.
Last week, Dr. Alexander Shulipov, the guy who warned about PPE shortages in Voronezh City, Russia, fell out of a goddamn window and cracked his scientist's skull. After being hospitalized, he made a new video, this time retracting those claims, and he seems to be healing nicely. Now, you would think this is weird, but in actuality, it happens more often than you think. You see, he's the 3rd doctor to have made these claims and have fallen out of large story windows. Now, I can't tell if falling out of windows is a side effect of the coronavirus or a side effect of speaking out against the regime. It's crazy how when he fell out of the window, he cracked his skull, also broke both legs, and has fist marks all over his torso. But I don't know, I'm just having trouble putting 2 and 2 together.
Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, the guy that believes that Sandy Hook didn't happen, Barack Obama is running a child prostitution ring with a pizza parlor, and that the Megalodon, in fact, still exists, has a new one. And that is, if the shit hits the fan, he's going to turn cannibal and eat his neighbors. He said, quote, "I admit it, I will eat my neighbors. I won't have to for a few years because I've got food and stuff. But I'm literally looking at my neighbors now and going, I'm ready to hang them up and gut them and skin them. My daughters aren't starving to death. I will eat my neighbors. I will." Damn, times are pretty rough right now for a guy that sold tens of millions of dollars of fake coronavirus cures, brain force, and 5G kills t-shirts.
South Carolina woman Cynthia Covert, at 58 years old, died from drowning this week after petting an alligator. Reports say that Miss Covert was on her way to paint the nails of a client at that client's house. She stopped by a nearby pond while on foot to pet an alligator that was situated on the embankment. The alligator allegedly grabbed her and dragged her into the pond before initially letting her go. Witnesses say that Covert stood up waist deep in the middle of the pond and said, "Well, I guess I won't do that again." She was in fact correct. The gator then grabbed her and dragged her underneath, where she then died of drowning, or being eaten while drowning. Police responded soon after to the incident, where they then found the alligator and shot it to death. Was this a crime of covert drowning or overt excessive force on an unarmed alligator?
Venezuelan officials claimed this week that 2 former Special Forces operatives were among the mercenaries arrested for trying to overthrow the government in a coup. One of the soldiers under video interrogation said that he was there to train opposition forces to overthrow the current president, Maduro. During a press briefing, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said, "We will do everything within our power to try to get these guys back." Who exactly are we going to send, though? After all, if this crack team can't get all the way through, is there anyone left? I mean, can you think of a better strategy than having a few guys wander in broad daylight wearing a mishmash of tactical gear, some specialist stashes, and some expired military IDs? I sure can't. One dude said he got his elite training at AIT. AIT. Badass. Mother of God, with thousands and thousands of dudes looking for contracting work after decades of war, you decide to hire the capped out at AIT guy for your coup? All right, it's certainly one way to go. Can't believe it didn't work. I gotta tell you, our apparel company has a better chance of overtaking the Venezuelan government than these mercs. Hell, you should have just sent the guys from the Michigan House protest last week with all the Cryptek gear. At least it's nicer than what these guys had.
Portland, Oregon Antifa activist Austin Goodrich went viral after tweeting that he was suing his landlord. The coronavirus has put many in dire financial instability, and paying rent has been a hot topic. Austin tweeted that his landlord tracked the delivery of his stimulus check and demanded that he use it to pay rent. This after Austin's landlord refused his request to waive all remaining rent, give him an excellent reference, and give him his security deposit back. The internet erupted in support for Austin against his tyrannical landlord. That was until it was revealed that his evil landlord was actually his grandmother. Austin had apparently been refusing to pay his grandmother rent money, and the only reason she knew about his stimulus check is because she also does his taxes. Listen, if you can't make outrageous demands and sue your own grandmother these days, what can you do? Austin reportedly stated that he did it to bring attention to the unfortunate circumstances that renters are facing during the pandemic and to shed light on the vulnerabilities of the IRS. He has since locked his Twitter account, but we believe his landlord may have grounded him and taken away his phone.
This week, a video surfaced of a February killing of a young black man that has the state of Georgia and the entire country up in arms. 25-year-old Ahmed Arbery was allegedly jogging through a suburban neighborhood when he was followed by 2 men. 64-year-old Gregory McMichael and his son, 34-year-old Travis McMichael, followed the man in their truck holding a shotgun and a pistol. The McMichaels claimed that Arbery matched the description of somebody that they had seen in a neighbor's security camera. Arbery was not a suspect in any break-ins. In their police statements, the McMichaels claimed that Arbery violently attacked them and they were only defending themselves. Waycross District Attorney George Barnhill said the circumstances of the incident did not warrant any arrests. He wrote that by Georgia law, the McMichaels were legally able to defend themselves as they did. Barnhill recused himself, stating ties to the McMichaels after this statement. The video release tells a very different story. Multiple calls to a 911 dispatcher said that there was a black man running through the neighborhood, but they were unable to say what wrongdoing this man was executing. The elder McMichael is a former police officer and district attorney investigator. So far, 2 prosecutors have recused themselves because of their previous relationship with McMichael. So then all of a sudden this video surfaces painting a very different picture and the entire country is upset. Arbery's father has called the killing a modern-day lynching, but people everywhere are asking the question, how did this occur and then these 2 guys just walked? The national media attention has stirred interest, and this week Governor Brian Kemp had tweeted out that the country deserved answers. Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr said he was deeply disturbed by the events and that he expects justice to move swiftly. In fact, as we wrote this report, there was an update that the 2 men have been arrested. For now, that's all there is to the story. You can all watch the video yourself and draw your own conclusions. However, we're not going to jump into this with both feet until we get a little more information. Separately though, no matter what this investigation determines, no matter what other footage there is available, nobody is going to convince me that this situation wasn't avoidable. When you own a gun, you have to take it seriously. I think a lot about conversations that I've had with Tim Kennedy and others where the level of their training allowed them to save lives instead of take them. The second that you pull out a weapon, you're escalating the situation, so you need to be extremely careful when you do so. The second you point it at a person, you are willing to take a life. There are absolutely times to do that. But if you're untrained or you have some kind of a hero complex where you're daydreaming about this stuff, then you probably should not be carrying that weapon. You will not make good decisions under stress if you haven't practiced making good decisions under stress. So if you're a gun owner, as I was before I lost all my guns in an unfortunate canoe accident, be really honest with yourself about how much time you've practiced under duress and make sure that you never pull that weapon if the time isn't appropriate. Once you do, you and you alone are responsible for what happens.
Another 3 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits this week as the coronavirus pandemic continues. More than 33 million Americans have made unemployment claims in the last 7 weeks. So we've got that going for us, which is nice.
Facebook revealed a group of people that will embody a new organization that will review Facebook content. They will be known as the precogs. The goal is to identify offensive statements before they're even made and throw you off of Facebook. Just kidding, but there really is a new review panel. The panel is made up of free expression advocates, lawyers, a former prime minister, Nobel Peace Prize laureates, and a guy from Wendy's. Now, Facebook is pitching this as a good thing that's going to allow for more free thought, but most people are just looking at this as that big evil emperor from the movie Gladiator going, "Ugh." I mean, let's be honest. Anytime that you are putting a panel in charge of which thought is acceptable and not acceptable, you're never going to arrive at the right answer. Nevertheless, as long as Facebook remains one of the world's largest information sources, there's always going to be public concern about what Facebook is showing you or not showing you. It's powerful enough to manipulate public opinion.
The Senate voted this week on a war powers resolution to limit Trump's power for using military force against Iran. In a vote of 49 to 45, the Senate failed to override Trump's veto of the bill. The bill was introduced back in February after the U.S. took out General Qasem Soleimani in a move that Congress didn't authorize.
Tara Reade, the woman who accused presidential candidate and Vice President Joe Biden of sexual assault, said that Biden should step down from his presidential run. In her first interview since Biden defended himself, she was quoted as saying, "You should not be able to run on the premise of character for president." In the past few weeks, the Me Too movement, Believe All Women, the Democratic Party, and a host of others have come under criticism for attacking multiple Republicans but staying ominously quiet on Biden. This has added fuel to the fire that all of the previous attacks were just smear campaigns targeted to destroy Republicans. And then there's the weird ones. One senator, for example, tweeted that she does in fact believe Tara Reade, but is going to vote for Biden anyway because she has to defeat Trump. Kind of says a lot about the state of politics right now. As we watch our country slowly get flushed down the cesspool of life and time, let's at least all admit that this presidential debate is gonna be lit.
What? Breaking. This just in. Demolition Man 2 has been given a green light. John Spotton will likely be fined 5 goddamn credits.
And finally, in Florida Man news, Richard McGuire was quoted as saying to the police, "It looked like a tropical paradise." What was his crime, you ask? He decided to self-quarantine himself on a private Disney island. The first officer to the scene witnessed a small boat being helped back to shore by a member of the Disney staff. The officer in an arrest affidavit said that numerous deputies had been looking for the man by land, sea, and air for quite some time, but the man did not hear them because he was asleep in one of the buildings. Personally, I don't even think they should be mad. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Wait, so our Florida Man story this week is just a dude that got into a dinghy, rowed out to a private island that hasn't been used from the 90s, and went to sleep while the police looked for him? That's not good enough. Matt, can we do better? Here we go. Here's some real Florida Man news. As a Rotary Club president prepared to give away food in his weekly food giveaway for the needy, he was surprised and knocked out by a 64-year-old pastor that was executing a rival food giveaway. Apparently, Pastor Bernice McKell was upset that they were giving food away at the same corner and that the other man had 12 pallets of food, which was far more than the food he had. I don't know about you guys, but doesn't he seem a little needy? And with that, I'm Nick Palmisciano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as news you're getting already, and I've got to admit, this might not have been our best work. But as always, you can get 25% off store-wide at rangerup.com when you use the code BNN. Have a good weekend. But first, the small business shout-outs.
Your Pie Pizza and Pasta in Penn Laird, Virginia. Veteran owned and operated.
Apocalyptic Steel Bladesmith in Todd Mission, Texas.
The Firing Pin Gun Shop in Niles, Michigan. Not Missouri, Michigan.
Close Quarters Tactical in Shelby Township, Michigan.
Bertels and Company Heating and Cooling in Morrow, Illinois. Civilian owned, veteran operated.
Towner Inc. in Olathe, Kansas.
Melly's Chicken Shack in Sunbury, Pennsylvania.
Fury Cybersecurity LLC in Treasure Island, Florida. Veteran owned and operated. As an aside, Treasure Island was a terrible film.
Mike's Auto Service in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
East Albemarle Towing in Albemarle, North Carolina.
Bear Island Brewing Co. in Boise, Idaho, veteran owned.
Good Beards in Urbandale, Iowa, veteran owned and operated.
Tier 1 Training Center in Evanston, Illinois.
CrossFit Vector in Saginaw, Texas, veteran owned and operated.
Hoppy Endings in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Pop Snyder's Lunch in Sunbury, Pennsylvania.
Baldy's Jeep Shop in Cedar Park, Texas.
Line of Fire in Moody, Alabama.
Johnson Automotive in Austin, Texas.
Morning Donuts in Leesville, Louisiana, just outside of Fort Polk. And if you can get there, I'm sorry.
Peter Welch's Gym Boxing in South Boston, Massachusetts. And that's it for the small business shoutouts. Support small businesses now before the murder hornets get you.